Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Game Changer Mentality Podcast. I am your host, Rodney Flowers, bestselling author, keynote speaker, and resilience trainer. And as always, you guys know I'm going to say this. I'm excited about the show. Today, I have a young lady in the studio with me that I cannot wait to speak with. I cannot wait for her to share with you. I've been waiting on this interview with her for quite some time, and it has finally arrived, and I'm really excited. You guys are gonna really enjoy this today. So sit back and relax and get prepared because there's gonna be some really good information that's coming across. And we're gonna talk about a real issue. We're gonna talk about mental illness today. And in all seriousness, this is something that needs to be addressed across the nation, if not across the world. There's a lot of people living with mental illness, and mental illness is a case where not everyone knows how to deal with that. And there's people that have mental illnesses that have side effects or symptoms as a result of that, and they don't know how do I live my life with a mental illness. And then apart from that, it's the people around them, their family and their supporters. How do I support someone with a mental illness? And most often people want to shy away from this. They don't want to deal with it, and it's not because they don't have a heart for it or it's just something they want to set to the side to deal with later. They just don't know how. And I really believe that there's a contribution and an effective life that someone with a mental illness can live, but they need the help. And so I want to tackle that today. I mean, because I really believe that if we have the know-how, that can really be a game changing aspect for not only the person with the mental illness, but for the community at large. And so before we dive into that and this young lady comes on, I want to say thank you to all of you that have been following me. Thank you if you're new to the show today. Thank you for being here. I realize that there's other shows out there that you could be tuning into right about now, but you have decided to listen in on the Game Changer Mentality Podcast. I completely appreciate that. And for all of you that have been following me all along, sincere gratitude to you guys for being here with me. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are really allowing the show to be what it is. And I really thank you. Really thank you. And so without further ado, I'm going to be introducing Natasha Pierre. This woman is an award-winning speaker, author, and a mental health advocate with over 20 years of lived experience. Her relatable style, occupied with her firsthand understanding of various mental illnesses, allows her to connect with global audiences to share the importance of self-advocacy, community support, and effective legislation. So, guys, really tune into the show because this is going to be a great show. 1 in 5 Americans with a mental illness delay seeking the necessary treatment because of the stigma surrounding the disability. 1 in 5. And I know, I'm just going to keep it real. There may be someone out there listening right now with a mental illness or knows someone with a mental illness. This is a very, very important subject. Okay, so please let's not take this show lightly, and let's welcome an expert in the area, Miss Natasha Pierre. Welcome to the show, young lady.
Thank you so much, Rodney. I really appreciate you having me today.
Yes, ma'am. You know what? It is a pleasure to have you on the show. And when I was reading your bio and doing some research on you, I found out that you were in this work of mental health, and you are an advocate for people with mental illness, and you teach them how to deal with it. And I also noticed that you really expand your work into the people that support them, right? Their families and their friends, and how they can help someone with this type of issue. And so I'm glad that you're here, and I'm anxious to really understand your position on mental illness and how we can better it in our communities, in our homes, because there's some families out there with this. And having a disability myself, a physical challenge, I would say, I don't really call it a disability. I know what it's like to have to deal with these types of challenges, maybe not from a mental standpoint, but at least from a physical. And so, yeah, I mean, talk to us about, mental illness and the work that you do, and how we can, better this situation in our homes.
Well, there's a couple things that you mentioned that I really tackle from the very beginning when working with any client and their parents. The first thing is it's important that everyone understands that as long as you have a mind, mental wellness is your business. it is your issue. You don't have to have a diagnosis specifically to care about your mind. And so mental wellness is something that everyone needs to be aware of. People lose a loved one, people go through trauma, they see someone killed, etc. And that's what the work that I do with veterans. They have traumatic life events. They weren't diagnosed with anything initially, but because of what they've seen and because of what they've experienced, now they are in the category of mental illness. Mental illness is something that is diagnosed. Unfortunately, many of them are defined or categorized, or a person receives a diagnosis based on their symptoms. So for example, there's no way to take a blood test to see if you have bipolar disorder. What a doctor or psychiatrist is going to look for, they're going to look for your symptoms. Are you having extreme shifts in moods? Are you having suicidal ideations? Are you having extreme highs, extreme lows? Are you experiencing anxiety? Those are the symptoms that they're looking for. So the first thing that I like to ensure that everyone understands is, just because we're talking about mental illness, it's not something that you close your ears off to because you don't have a diagnosis. You have a mind. And so you need to be mindful that you have to take care of your mental wellness. There are many women that have pregnancies, they never had a diagnosis, and then after the child is born, they're experiencing postpartum depression. That's not something that they caused. That's not something that they went looking for. That's something that occurred based on what's happening in their life and the way that they're dealing with it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I love that you mentioned that you don't say you have a disability, and you said a challenge. And that is my entire platform. I don't believe in disabilities. In fact, I believe everyone has a disability, because a disability is only something that you are not able to do. And so there are some people who are not able to see, not able to read, not able to walk, not able to hear, not able to do math. We all have something that we're not.
I can't get this right now. Hold up. Hmm.
Not able to do. And so when I work with clients, when I work with their family, are you still there with me?
I am. I don't know what happened. I have.
I had a call coming through despite having my do not disturb on. But
Okay.
the last part that I was saying is that I challenge my clients and their families not to focus on the disability, what the person cannot do, but rather focus on what they are able to do. We all have limitations, but if we live our life based on our limitations, what we're doing is we're shifting our identity from one of just being human, deserving to have a place to exist and to be, to one where we are narrowed down solely and only to what we're unable to do. And that's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. What are some of the things that you recommend um, to someone that may be struggling with postpartum depression or bipolar disease? Because I really feel like when you talked about the lady that may have had a baby and as a result of that may have developed some type of mental illness, but what comes up for me is that that person may not be so willing to admit that, or even willing to talk about it. May experience the symptoms and the signs, but I feel that that thought of, I'm okay, I don't need a doctor for this, everything is fine, and so they go on with their lives and not realizing that this thing can get worse over time, and it can get to a place where it's irreversible. All you can do is treat it, where if we catch it early, we can have the discussions about it, and it's not something that they've caused on themselves. These are things that happen as a result of maybe traumatic events in our lives, and it doesn't have to be negative. It could be simple things as having a baby. But if we don't have those conversations about this, then we can't make it better. We can't treat it. We can't, do what is necessary in order to deal with it. And so, what is your thought around that, and how do we open up the conversation about this?
Great question. How do we open up the conversation about it? We need to start it. In the same way that Conversations about cancer, high blood pressure, and diabetes are mainstream, that we're now speaking openly about it, that people are sharing that they have to take their high blood pressure medicine or they take insulin every day. People are having these conversations and there's no shame, there's no stigma around it. People are talking about the cancers that they have. They're sharing when they shave their head or when they have their mastectomy or when they are dealing with the seed implants from, radiation. So people are having those conversations because it's almost been accepted or normalized with those conditions. When there's a physical condition, in my opinion, a physical condition, a physical disability, something that people can actually see and develop some empathy for, we totally understand it. We understand a person that has one arm, that can't hear, that can't see. But the conversation and the empathy shifts when we're talking about mental illness. All of a sudden, it's a character flaw. The reason you can't get out of bed is because you're lazy. The reason why you are crying and you're gloomy and you're a Debbie Downer all the time is you really need to read Natasha and Rodney's book. That's really what you need to do. Okay, you need to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and recognize that, this is your life and we've got to, and that's not true. There are mental illnesses that are caused by trauma, that are caused just by our upbringing and how we've had to navigate and adjust in order to cope and deal. And there's some that are hereditary. And I think in order for us to really end the stigma around mental illness, we need to have the conversations and we need to have them on large platforms. Yes, there are some celebrities that are speaking about it. I challenge politicians all the time. You need to stop holding town halls just about potholes and hold town halls about the things that are really affecting people. There are many people suffering in silence because they fear the stigma. They fear saying that if I tell someone that it takes me 3 hours to get dressed in the morning and leave the house, they're gonna think I'm weird. They're not gonna understand that I have a social anxiety that makes me question whether or not my keys are in my purse. And I have to throw my keys outside of the door so I can physically see them on the floor to know that I'm not gonna get locked inside. You've got to be able to explain to someone, yes, driving over a bridge or in a car garage makes me claustrophobic, makes me want to run, makes me feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. Simultaneously, I'm having a heart attack and a stroke and an asthma attack all at once. People need to understand. And what I feel is the general public is really ignorant, and ignorant in they lack information about what mental illness means and even how to be supportive.
Wow. Wow. I mean, just those things that you've mentioned now, I didn't realize that, someone is actually living that way. It takes them 3 hours perhaps to leave out of their house, and they're questioning themselves about their keys. I've seen that type of behavior, but I didn't connect it to having a mental illness or a mental challenge. So let's stop right there for a second. I mean, what are the signs? I mean, how can you recognize when someone is dealing with something like this?
For me, because I've been in this field so long, I recognize people every day that are dealing with everything from depression to mood disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, anxiety. I can see it. I can see the signs. And the onset for each illness, each challenge, the onset is different. Bipolar disorder manifests usually around the teen years for boys, early 20s for girls, women, but there are children who are 5 and 6 that are exhibiting schizoaffective behavior, even sociopathic behavior. So what we have to recognize, and I think this is our society's issue, we've come to a place in our society where we normalize bad behavior. And when I say bad behavior, I'm not just talking about what is wrong and taboo and needs to be punished, but how many people are walking around and their knee has been hurting for 3 weeks, but instead of checking it out, instead of actually stretching, they just have accepted, my knee's gonna hurt because I'm getting older. Well, it's one thing to feel sad after the death of a loved one. That's normal. And I tell everyone that when you lose a loved one, you have to go through a 1 year cycle of grief. You have to experience every birthday, every anniversary, every holiday. You have to visit all of the places that you all went together. You have to feel the feels, and it's going to take a year for you just to face those things and breathe through it. Now, if it's been 5, 10 years and you're still grieving on year 6 as the day you grieved on day 1, in my opinion, that is a challenge. You're not processing the death correctly. You're not processing it. And there might be signs of depression. And that's something that we have to work on. And so there are many people who are grieving still, and I see it all day, and it's one of my pet peeves. I see it all the time on Facebook where people are mentioning, happy birthday to my grandfather, he'd be 182 today. Happy birthday to my mom, she'd be, 81. And I understand that everyone grieves in their own way, but I think that there's something to be said about the public display and wanting to share that mourning and grief process afresh every single year. There's something to be said about that. And I know social media has made us all believe that everything is fit for public consumption. But in my opinion, there's some things that need to be private. And one of those things is grief. After you share that a person has passed, no one else has a responsibility or a role in your healing. Healing is a personal job, and you need to take care of it. So the signs and symptoms vary. We have some people, oh, she just has a bad attitude. She's just a hothead. Well, let's look at that a little bit closely. She could be a hothead. She could need some anger management. She could just need some discipline because she's a spoiled brat. Or it could be that she needs to learn some coping mechanisms because she is experiencing drastic mood swings and isn't aware that she's experiencing them. But in our community and in our families, many times we look at each other, we see the behavior, we accept it, we ignore it. That's just the way she is. Okay, just give Rodney his time. He'll come downstairs when he's ready. No, Rodney is sad. And then the amazing thing, we're all surprised when someone commits suicide. I didn't know the signs weren't there. I couldn't believe it. And the reason that is, as a society, we've moved away from having those Sunday dinners. We've moved away from having those early morning prayer times as a family. We've moved away from having real dialogue and conversation where we can actually know when a person is acting different. In a married couple, you've been together for so long, the husband can notice when the wife is behaving differently. The mother can notice when the husband, okay, normally you leave your shoes at the front door. Today you took them off and you took them inside. That was different. We're not recognizing that even in our own families. And then when someone commits suicide, we're shocked. Really? Really?
Wow. Yeah. So, wow. I mean, I'm getting from this that, society has shaped us to accept just about everything. Everything is acceptable. And so when there is something different, we don't question it. We just kind of go with the flow. And that has become habitual in our communities. And now, I mean, what you're talking about is that being habitual in family and not having that structure in place to really pay attention to the sign. No one is paying attention anymore because we're too busy doing our own thing, too busy involved with social media and everything that's surrounding that we're losing sight of the signs that can actually tell the tale that, wait a minute, we need to take a stop here. Let's see what's really going on and pay attention to this. Wow, and that really brings me to just caring. I mean, do you think we're not caring enough as a society, as a family, as people?
No, I think we're caring different. It's not that we are not caring enough. We're caring different. We're putting our care deposits in different ways. We feel that because Natasha posted a picture on Facebook, she must be doing well. You know, I've had times where I've been in the hospital and everyone is like, oh, you look like you're doing so well. You're so happy. Yeah, that's a picture. That's a flash. That's 1 second of my life posted on Facebook. I always speak about the Facebook fantasy and the Instagram illusion. There is no one posting their worst moments. I'm not posting pictures of when I just wake up in the morning and I still have my head wrap on and, you know, Clearasil all over my face. No, I'm posting pictures like this. And so we're caring about what people choose to show. Real friendships in my life, I'm grateful that I have real friends who just by hearing my voice on the phone can say, all right, Natasha, what's up? I'm not getting off the phone until you tell me what's going on. Those are the friendships that we need. We need to shift our care from just what we see on social media, which is everyone's PR representative, and shift it back to having real conversations and dialogues where our two eyes, in the Caribbean we have a saying, say, our two eyes make four. I'm seeing your eyes, you're seeing my eyes, and I can see and gauge exactly how you're doing. But we're relying on social media to help us do that, and that's not the way it happens. Gone are the days where we're having, you know, dinners at Big Mama's house. Gone are the days where we're having dinners together as a family, you know, because one parent is working late or there's so many extracurricular activities that the kids are involved in that everyone has different schedules. And so pick up some Chinese on your way home. Mm-hmm. Parents aren't noticing that their kids are being bullied until it's too late, until they're reading in the diary or seeing in the locker days after. Mental illness is not just a one family's problem. It's a society problem. It's a community problem. It is something that we must all understand and recognize that this is not something that we only talk about when someone shoots up a school. This isn't something that we talk about when we say, oh yeah, the neighbor's kid is acting crazy again. No, you need to understand, what does crazy mean? Does crazy mean that someone is feeling very, very sad and suicidal? Does crazy mean that someone has visions of of grandiosity and they feel that they can take over the world right now? Let me do a marathon right now. Are they seeing hallucinations? Are they hearing voices? Is it autism? What exactly is crazy? And I think that our society has been lazy. It's been easier for us to lump everyone into a crazy box or lump everyone into a special needs box than it is to take some time to actually figure out what is going on with you. It's not normal for a new mother to not want to take care of her child. That's not normal. But you know what else isn't normal? It's not normal for us to expect our servicemen and women to go overseas and kill and then tell them to come back here and act normal without giving them the tools and the resources and the keys necessary to live that normal life that we're requiring for them. In the same token, we have men and women who are killing. Let's be clear. War is murder and death, okay? It's kill or be killed. We're telling them, go overseas, go to Iraq, go to Afghanistan, go to wherever and kill the enemy, okay? And we have sympathy when they return on 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day. But here's the thing. Where's the sympathy for the children that are seeing people murdered in Chicago? Where's the sympathy for the people who are seeing people killed in DC and across the country? Where's the sympathy and the empathy for students who have experienced school shootings? Where is that sympathy and empathy? Where's the services for them? That's PTSD. That's a trauma that they have endured, and who's helping them deal with it? Or have we already moved on? Because, you know, Eminem just dropped a new, single, and so let's focus on that. Or, you know what, the president said something else, so let's focus there. The reality is that the change that we need to see when it comes to mental illness is not going to happen top down. It's going to happen in the community. It's going to happen with, a person like me with my face saying, you know what, I deal with anxiety. Some days I don't even notice it. But on other days, yeah, it takes me a hell of a long time to leave home. I have a disabled tag in my car so that I never have to park in a parking garage. And when I say it and when I share it and people see this face saying that, and I'm not ashamed of it. See, if I don't make it an issue, it won't be an issue. It's not an issue to me. There's some people who take insulin every single day and they're not ostracized or teased about it. There are people swallowing pills right now for their cancer treatments, high blood pressure, hypertension, all of that. I have yet to hear someone say, oh my God, you pill popper, you. It's not happening. But there's a stigma when it comes to mental illness because people are ignorant. They don't realize that it's caused from trauma, from life experiences, hereditary. That's just what it is. So let's have the conversation because people are going to continue dying.
You know what really, wow. I mean, you're talking about social responsibility. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
leveling that responsibility on the communities, which is fine. That's great. I mean, I think we do need to take social responsibility. And I think the first step to that, because I think as a community, we're the cause of some of this. And what I'm going to bring up is really going to hit home because I think judgment is one of the biggest creators of, first of all, the mental illness itself, because I think people go into these things because of the judgment. And then whenever they have this, they don't want to talk about it because then there's even more judgment,
Right.
And so we have to get to a place where we're becoming a community that is very diverse. I mean, it's not black and white anymore. I mean, it's very diversified. And what that brings is, different ways of thinking, different ways of behaving, different ways of living lives. And some of this stuff is new, and it brings about judgment. And with mental challenges, some of these things we don't want to talk about. And I think a lot of times we don't want to talk about it because of the fear of being judged. And one of the things we can do as a society is be more open and receptive to this, realizing that, not that it's normal, but it does exist. There's a big fat elephant in the room and no one wants to talk about it. And we
But
make
here's
it
the thing,
worse.
Rodney. It is normal. It is normal. How are we defining normal? If we only define normal as having two eyes that can see, two ears that can hear, arms that work and move, if we only use that narrow definition of normal, there's a lot of people that's going to be left out. And that's the problem. That normal standard. What is normal? Normal for me is whatever I need to do in order to be successful that day, period. I have one client who can only use his left arm. That's his normal. Yeah, he knows he has a disability, but when I ask him, okay, so what do you want to do? He's like, well, I can operate switches with my hand. Yes, he can. Absolutely. And so what we need to do is we need to broaden the definition of normal, or at least allow each individual to define what normal is. Because, when you talk about judgment, there's some men and women that come back from combat and they're fine. They don't have any residual issues, apparently. They go on to build careers and have successful marriages and families and everything's going well. And then there's a person that comes back and falls apart. I had met with a homeless veteran about a week ago. Just wanted to talk, took some food and we're talking. And, I gave him some money and I asked him, I said, honestly, when I give you this money, do you buy drugs? Do you buy alcohol? I just wanted to know for myself as a mental health advocate, as an advocate for veterans. And he told me one of the realest things I've ever heard. He said, yes, I do. You know why? Because for those 2 to 3 hours that I'm drunk and the time that I'm knocked out, I'm not seeing the bullet enter my friend's head. I challenge anyone to judge him. How dare you? How dare you? He left his home, went overseas to serve the country, And we ride by in our cars with the air condition on, and we look down on him because he's just an alcoholic. You know, if I give him money, all he's going to do is, you know, drink it away. Well, you know what? If drinking means he has some peace for 3, 4, 5 hours out of the day, drink. But you know what? Where are all of the other services to ensure that he's able to cope? In my opinion, and I'm trying to find someone in the military that can speak to me about this, I want to know about the debriefing, that decompression period when you leave a war zone and before you head back to your address at 123 Maiden Lane. I want to know, what is that like? Is it individual therapy? Is it group therapy? What is it? Because I can tell you, in my experience, it is simply not enough.
Yeah, it's not working. It's not working. And the expectation is, you're a soldier, get over it. You can deal with it, you know.
Of course, man up. Man up. Well, here's another thing that's, you know, pretty taboo to talk about in the military. There are women being raped in the military almost every day. And they are being told to man up and deal with it. That's trauma. And I know this because I have worked with veterans who are unable to sleep with their wives because they can't have anyone next to them because they're so aware of their surroundings and aware of everything, and they haven't made the shift from combat to civilian life. Veterans who, in a fit of rage, you know, hit their wives, something they wouldn't do before, but they're unable, they lack the tools to process everything that they've been through. There's that. People with bipolar disorder who can't understand why everything is going really well. I'm in a great relationship. I just got a promotion. My hair is growing. My nails are growing. My skin is glowing. But yet I want to stay in the bed. I don't want to leave. If we return to an oral society, a society where we communicate, where we share stories, one neighbor shouldn't find out that the other neighbor had a child that committed suicide after their child committed suicide. That should be something that's communicated. That should be something that, you know, when we take a pie over, remember those days? You take a pie over,
Absolutely.
You take a bun cake over to the new neighbor, you sit down and you have some conversations, but we're so isolated and afraid of being judged. And that's why I wanted to get into advocacy. That's why I want to speak about mental illness and mental health, because no one is expecting my face to do it. I'm supposed to, the person that is speaking about mental illness is supposed to look crazy, hair scattered, you know, just look like you've been through the ringer. No, maybe you'll digest it a little bit better if it's coming from me. So you can look at me and I can tell you that there are people in your circle, 1 in 5 people, 1 in 5 are dealing with something. You count on 5 people that you know, 1 of them is possibly dealing with a mental illness. And as a caveat, let me also say this. I'm also not advocating the quick diagnosis. I know that there are many parents that I have told, your son does not need Ritalin, he's 4. Can you allow him to be a 4-year-old boy, please, before putting him on Ritalin? There's nothing wrong with him.
Right.
Okay. There are many women that I know who, because they're experiencing sadness, you go through a divorce, you lose a child, you lose a job. Listen, sadness is a part of life. Sadness is on the spectrum of emotions that we are to experience as human beings. We're not only going to always be happy. We're going to have to experience some sadness. And when those sad moments come, we're going to have to deal with it. Not pop a pill. It means feel the feels, feel the sadness, get under the covers, cry, bawl, throw some things, write a letter to the whomever, tear it up, set a name on fire, do whatever you have to do to get through it, because pills are not always the answer.
Wow. And so what do you recommend? I mean, this is a challenge, and I don't know I definitely don't think I have the right answer to solve this issue, because I think it's so vast and there's so many things that need to be done, including having the conversations, lessening the judgment, having more empathy, and really from a political standpoint, really getting some advocacy from the top down, and creating some programs to do this. And then I think where we're going as a community in terms of social media and technology has some level of responsibility, if not contribution,
Mm-hmm.
to some of these things that we're talking about. Not all of it from the veterans. I think perhaps the government or the military have to take a deeper look at this, and change the expectation, having more programs that help with that transition out into the civilian world. But as an individual level, I mean, what can we do? What can you and I do to help this?
Great question. Great question. The first thing when I work with clients is I stress the importance of self-advocacy. Self-advocacy, well, self-determination and self-advocacy, they go hand in hand. Self-determination is you recognizing that you have a choice. Regardless of you having a disability, you have a choice, you have an opinion, you have a say in the way you lead your life. Self-advocacy is actually when you communicate those wants, needs, desires to another person. So one of the challenges when it comes to mental illness and people taking medicine, you always hear, oh, they went off their meds. Well, that's a very, very common thing, because we've got to understand that the medicine that is prescribed to people with mental illness, they are at times, in my opinion, they're strong, okay? They're, in my opinion, like street drugs, meaning if you stop them cold turkey, you will go through withdrawal. And that's something that many people are not aware of. And so when they take the medicine and maybe it causes them to sleep a little bit too long, or they feel like their head is stuffed with cotton, or they're slurring their speech, or they can't remember, what they do is they stop the medicine because they don't like how it feels.
Mm.
Instead of having the conversation with the doctor and saying, listen, this made me sleep too long. Can we adjust the dose? Or can we try something else? So when you quit the medicine cold turkey, now you're going through withdrawal. Now your symptoms are worse. Your family is pissed off. It really starts with self-advocacy. And everyone that is dealing with a mental illness has to understand you're going to have to communicate and partner with your doctor in order to find the correct cocktail. Because the medicines that work for me won't necessarily work for you. You're going to have to find what works. And many times people go through up to 20 different prescriptions before they find the one that works for them. Another thing to be mindful of is, even if you are taking your medicine regularly, if there is new stressors introduced to your life, it reduces the efficacy of the medicine. So if you are taking your medicine, things are going great, and then you lose a loved one, that stress can override the effect of your medication. And so it's important, again, that's the individual, self-advocacy. For me, I have probably tried everything. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think everyone should gift themselves 6 months of once a week therapy. It is absolutely beneficial. I believe in meditation and prayer, definitely a healthy diet, adding vitamin D. Vitamin D is a natural mood stabilizer. If you're not getting it in your diet, go out in the sun. Fortunately, I live in Florida, so I get a lot of that. You need to journal. You need to have solid friendships with people who are able to not only tell you, hey, Rodney, you're looking good today, but also, Rodney, something's a little off. What's going on? What's going on? And even when you say, no, I'm fine, they're able to interpret what your fine is. Did he say I'm fine, or did he say I'm fine? I have people in my life like that who can look at me, who can hear my voice and know, all right, Natasha, what's going on? I'm coming over. I'm coming to get you. Get whatever it is. We need to have those relationships. I've tried tapping. I have exercise, hugely important. There's no one method that's going to fix mental illness. And there's some mental illnesses that are going to be temporary. There's some that's going to last until death. And you have to be aware of what you have so that you know how to deal with it. In the same way people are now living with AIDS, people are living with diabetes, people are living with blindness. It's the same way someone can live with schizophrenia and with bipolar disorder. And my goal and job as a coach is to help people minimize the interruptions in their professional lives because of a personal challenge that they're experiencing. You're sad, I understand, I get it. But what I do is we create strategies around, all right, on the day that you're feeling sad and you do not want to get out of bed, on the day that you are having a hard time leaving home, on the day that you've had 3 panic attacks in the morning because you're convinced that this is the day you're going to die on the highway. On those days, what can we do? A, to get you out of bed, B, to get you out the door, C, to get you driving, or allow you to stay in bed. And some of the clients that I work with, we've actually negotiated with their employer that the attendance policy isn't something that's going to be strictly adhered to for them based on their disability. What a lot of people aren't aware of is you can have accommodations at work. Any company with 15 or more employees by law must accommodate you in a way that's reasonable and doesn't put an undue hardship on the company. So instead of just saying, oh, you know what, my moods go up and down, I'll just stay home and, collect Social Security. No, you can get a job if you want to work, and that's something that I help people do. And what we're going to do is once you're hired, we're going to work in some of those accommodations that allow you to be your normal, not everyone else is normal, and live a productive life.
Wow. So in your practice, have you found that any of these challenges, I should say, are reversible? Are we able to turn back the clock on some of these things?
Great question. In my experience, I think postpartum depression might be the easiest. That's just in my experience. I deal and have dealt with all disabilities, from autism to schizophrenia, physical, mental, cognitive, learning, everything in between. My preference is to work with people who have mental illness because that's something that is very close to me. I understand it well. In my experience, I believe that it is possible for symptoms to be lessened. I have not seen with any of my clients where it has gone away. And I'll just, from my personal experience, I first began experiencing anxiety after 9/11. I was in New York at that time, and I was fainting all over New York, having what I didn't even know was panic attacks. Went to a slew of doctors, and no one knew what was wrong with me. And then one doctor said, you might be psychosomatic. Maybe you need to go see a shrink. Just like that. Not even, Natasha, I recommend seeing a psychiatrist. No, go see a shrink. And then for years, I didn't have any anxiety symptoms. When I moved to Florida 5 years ago, that's when it started back. Anxiety feels like you're having a heart attack and a stroke and an asthma attack all in one. And so to answer your question, I believe that symptoms can be lessened. And I think based on the combination of activities that one does, symptoms can be at bay for a while. But when new stressors are introduced into your life, as was for me in July, those symptoms can reoccur. And it's important to have a plan in place. It's important to have people around you, friends and family, that are aware of what you're going through. All of my friends, all of my close friends know about my diagnosis, know when I call you, know what to do, know what to say, know how to support me. That's important. And sadly, a lot of my clients they also have a secondary diagnosis, which is social anxiety, because they isolate, they stay at home, They feel weird. They feel that everyone's looking at them and judging them. And on top of that, they have, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat this, they have nasty family members that judge them. Why are you acting stupid? Why are you so dumb? Why do you act like that? You know, many people with disabilities endure some of the worst verbal abuse that you'd ever imagine. And I know that military men especially, because men are expected to be strong and deal with it, handle it. They come back home, and because they are dealing with their own struggles. And, you know, I was speaking with one veteran who, you know, had just gotten married before he was deployed, love of his life, great communication, everything. He goes overseas, he comes back, and she's no longer his best friend because he can't tell her everything that he's seen and done. So now there's a wall in between their relationship. Where are the people that's helping that marriage navigate that? He will never be able to tell her what he's seen and done because he's too scared that she's going to judge him. And so if we are going to talk about how much we love our military, if we're going to talk about how, you know, standing for the flag and the national anthem, I want that conversation had every single day. When you see someone homeless, but he's got on that Vietnam vet hat, I want those conversations happening every single day about real issues. When a man, you know, and in wartime, women, children, churches, places of worship are supposed to be off limits, but it's war. So when a man, woman comes home and can't hug their child like they used to, who's helping them deal with that? I don't care about Memorial Day and Veterans Day and 4th of July. I don't care. They are days where people barbecue and they set off fireworks, and they really don't care about the people that are really being affected, where there's no safe place in America on 4th of July because there are fireworks everywhere, and he's remembering a combat zone that he just left. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. You want to impress me? Take the money that you spent on that fireworks and go buy a veteran some groceries. Go buy him some amazing headphones so he can endure that day, because you're going to have your fun. So that's the place where I come from. And I know I'm very, very passionate about it. Don't get me talking about veterans, because I'm appalled by the pseudo fake love for our military, because it doesn't translate to the day-to-day. It doesn't. It translates for social media. It translates for some great sound bites on media, on TV. But at the end of the day, do you know that your next door neighbor is a major or a sergeant? Do you know? Or does he have to wear a cap or a shirt in order for you to even know who your neighbor is?
Wow. You know, so for the people that may be listening that are, you know, dealing with a mental challenge, I do want to ask this question. I mean, I believe that they're going to want to take more action for themselves. I mean, as a society, we have a long way to go to make some of these corrections. And each and every one of us have an individual responsibility to contribute to mental wellness. But for that individual that wants to do more for himself and to really beat this challenge, to conquer it, how does self-awareness play a role in being more self-aware, practicing? Because I believe, you know, in the game changer mentality, one of the strategies to adopting and maintaining a game changing mentality is self-awareness. And I believe that, you know, having that self-awareness in this, because you still can be a game changer, even though you have I'm big on if I don't care what, like you said, what's normal for you. It could be that you have one leg or you have no legs, but there's still something that you can contribute. And perhaps, I mean, look at you, you're a powerful advocate and not afraid to even announce that, you know, you're dealing with a mental a challenge. And so that's powerful. And so how does self-awareness play a role in you being so powerful? And what would you recommend to someone listening?
I love self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the tenets of emotional intelligence, which is one of my new favorite subjects. Self-awareness is step number one. And sadly, we're not taught how to be self-aware. We're taught to pay attention to our exterior. Make sure your hair is right, your lashes are done, you've got the correct foundation, make sure your foundation matches your neck. Those are girl things. Guys, you gotta make sure your beard is good, your hair is done, you got the lineup, whatever, your clothes are. We're taught about the exterior, to be mindful of the exterior, but we're really not taught how to sit with ourselves and understand us. And that's something that I have had to do. Let me give you an example. For me, anyone with if you ask anyone in the mental health profession, they will tell you every full moon, hospitals are packed, jails are packed. You get the word lunacy from lunar. No one has really done a scientific study to understand why there is such high mental health instances around a full moon. But I have the full moons for the year, the dates programmed in my phone on my calendar, 2 days out, so I know a full moon is coming. So I know that if I feel anxiety is high, or I feel that my mood is shifting, I know, oh, okay, it's a full moon, I'm good. Just keep doing everything like normal. For women need to be aware of their cycle, okay? It's not just hormonal changes and, PMS, she acts so crazy. It could be some other things too. So you need to be aware of your cycle, because one of the things, again, self-advocacy, when I work with my clients, is I tell them, no one is responsible for your bad behavior. Okay, you have a diagnosis, and when you're angry, when you're moody, when you're frustrated, go by yourself. You don't take that out on anyone else. So you need to be aware of the full moon. You need to be aware of your cycle. You need to be aware of every change, whether you're changing jobs, taking on a new task, moving. For me in July, what elevated my stress was moving to a different area, different, apartment. That was a stress, and it may not seem like a stress, but you've got to know your body. And so step one is to, I give my clients sometimes a calendar and a journal, a mood journal. How are you feeling today, and what are you doing? So let us pay attention. Okay, it seems like every time you go to Walmart, your anxiety is high. So here's what we're doing. What time are you going to? You're going to Walmart on a Saturday at noon. That's why. What you need to do, go to Walmart on a Tuesday at 7 in the morning, or a Sunday at 6 in the morning if it's 24 hours. That way you avoid the crowds, you avoid the people, and your stress levels go down, and you're able to function. Self-awareness is key. Why? Because of that first word, self. I can't do self-awareness for you. You can't do self-awareness for me. Self-awareness is a solo project. It's a solo assignment. We have to know what our triggers are. If you're I'm triggered by traffic. I do not drive in traffic at all because I'm too aware. I'm hyper vigilant about everyone that's around me. So I drive from 10 in the morning and I'm home by 3:30, 4 o'clock. I'm not dealing with rush hour. When you're trying to hit kids in the back seat, you're putting on mascara, you're drinking your coffee, trying to change the station. I'm not dealing with all of that. So you got to know what your triggers are. Where do you see yourself and find yourself becoming more agitated, irritated, stressed? Where does your mood sit? And we even have to be aware of people. There are energy vampires. There are people that we love and we like dearly. However, when we're around them, we question everything about ourselves. They're not supportive. They're not kind. They may gaslight. Gaslighting is if I walked into your room and I turned off the light and then I turned it back on. And you asked me, did you see the lights flicker? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? There are many people, even in my clients' families, with family members that gaslight them because they know that they don't quite trust their mental state. And so, are you sure you want to do that? Because, sometimes you know how you get. No, I don't know how I get. And that's the problem. You should know how you
Right.
get. You
Right.
should be self-aware enough that no one has the opportunity to gaslight you.
Wow. And my final question is, what do you say to the labeling? Because a lot of times we won't have that conversation with the close one, and we're not willing to accept how we are, right? We may know, but we're not willing to accept it and admit, yeah, that's kind of how I am because of the labeling. And so, what is your response to that?
I have a very straightforward approach. One of the questions that I'm asked frequently is, Natasha, how soon when I start dating should I tell the person about my diagnosis? And my response is, how soon would you tell them that you have asthma or epilepsy or diabetes? How soon would you tell them? If you don't make it an issue, they won't make it an issue. And truth be told, if there's anyone in your circle that has an issue with you having a mental illness, do you really want them in your life? So for me, putting my business out there, every person that I've ever dated has known about my diagnosis early, because I'm not going to build a relationship and make heart space for you if you have an issue with anxiety or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or anything. You're just not the one. You're just not. And I'm okay with that. And so for me, I don't make it an issue. I don't hide when I take medicine. Of course, I'm not going to be in the middle of Ruth Chris or Dave and Buster's shaking out my pills on the table. But as far as the people that are in my life and close to me, it's not an issue. This is me. And you take all of me or you take none of me.
Wow. So powerful. And for those out there listening, what we're really talking about is creating space for yourself and being unapologetic about it.
Yes.
That's really what we're talking about here. And realizing that, everyone has something. I'm really big believer in that. Everyone has a challenge. Everyone has something that they're dealing with, whether it's financial, relationship, physical, mental. We can go down the list. And, in life, that's just what it is. And
Absolutely.
the beauty of it is we can all shine despite of that. We can be game changers in spite of that. We can make a difference in spite of that. And we all have to do our part. And today we've been given some really good tips and tools and strategies that we can use to battle mental challenges in our lives, things that are preventing us from having those healthy relationships with our loved ones, honoring those who have went and fought for us, to allow us to have freedom here in this country. These are things, as game changers, after hearing this, we're responsible now. Having heard what has come across here, we have to take social responsibility to make this better in our communities. And Natasha, I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that information with us. And if you're listening and you want to connect with Natasha, if you want more of what she has to offer, and if you just maybe want someone that can support you, having, she shared her experience with you, and maybe she can be a good support for you. Maybe she can be an advocate for you. Maybe she can be someone that can help you get a job, get the accommodations that you need on your job. Reach out to her. And with that being said, where can people find you if they wanted to connect with you?
Well, I am where everyone's eyes are. So I am on social media, on Facebook, simply Natasha, and also Natasha Pierre Official, Instagram, Natasha Pierre Official, and my website, natashapierre.com, PIERRE.com. And, Rodney, I wanted to say one thing, game changer. That's the show. It's a game changer. And we all have to be game changers wherever we are. My assignment is working with people who have mental illness, mental health challenges, and also with veterans. That's my game. I challenge everyone to find your game, because when you find your game and you're living and walking and doing your game, changing your game, a lot of these symptoms lessen. When I am in the middle of life just seems crazy and I'm extremely symptomatic, let me find a veteran. Let me find someone that is dealing with mental illness and all of my symptoms lift, because I am neck deep in my passion.
Wow.
So for everyone that's listening, step one is that self-awareness, and that includes finding out what are you passionate about and living there. Because when you are living in your passion, a lot of things just don't seem so bad.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't.
Wow. I love that. And I believe that with challenges that we have, there's the seed of opportunity. And so regardless of where
Absolutely.
you are, if there's that you may feel that this challenge that you have is perhaps kicking your butt and you don't see the benefit of it, I want to challenge you to take a look at it a little bit differently. Harvest the good. Look at your positive potentials as a result of this. And I love what you've done, Natasha, at taking something like this that could uh, have caused you to go into a depression and not really be the outspoken person that you are, but you're turning it into something positive, making a difference for people. And that's what we have to do with all of the challenges that we face in our lives, because I really believe that, when that happens, you have a choice. You either allow that to bring out the best of you, or you allow it to consume you. And so I want to thank you for allowing that to be, something that you have utilized to be the person that you are. And so thank you for being on the show. And as we wrap up, do you have any last words for the audience?
Absolutely. On my website, you are able to find my book. Earlier this year, I released my first book, which is Provoking Thoughts, Volume 1. It is titled off of my Monday Night Live that I do on Facebook, so you can join me there, Provoking Thoughts broadcast. But this is 101 inspirational quotes for daily life. These are all original quotes that I call, they came as a divine download. And one of the things that I find that's usually missing with a lot of my clients is inspiration. And inspiration is me awakening the spirit within you. And that's what I want to do, because disability or not, limitation or not, challenge or not, everyone needs to be inspired to live their life. If you have breath and you're here, there's something for you to do. So let's get to doing that instead of fixating on all of the things that you can't do.
Wow.
And it's on my website, natashapierre.com.
Wow, natashapierre.com. Go get the book. Get yourself some inspiration to be the game changer that you were destined to be. Listen, wow, what a great show. Thank you for being here with us today. I love you. You are doing great work in the world. You're amazing. And I just want to thank you for being here once again. And for the audience, thank you again for listening in to another great show on the Game Changer Mentality Podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook. Join our Facebook community, the Game Changer Transformation Community. You will find a network of individuals who are changing the game from all walks of life in their community and in their homes, in their individual lives, and in business. So you're going to want to be a part of that. And like I always say as we wrap up the show, I want you to remember, regardless of where you are, what walk of life you are in, what challenge you may be facing, greatness is your birthright. We'll see you next time.